Hello, I'm Professor Lieu. Welcome to our live stream. We have a special guest today. This is Clarisse Chua, and she is a story artist and filmmaker, and also a recent graduate of Calarts, which has a very strong animation program that they are very well known for. And we're going to talk to Clarisse today about her experience as an animation student at Calarts and a little bit about how she got into art school as well. If you would like to grow as an artist and you can't afford an art class, we've got everything you need here at Art Prof, critiques and tutorials. Now, I'm really excited to have you on the stream, Clarisse, because obviously I'm well connected to the RISD community, and so it's very refreshing, I think, to talk to somebody who's in a very different art school program. And Clarisse, you and I met because you were in the Art Prof class of 2020 graduation. How did you hear
Yeah.
about it? Did one of your friends tell you? Did I message you? I can't remember how that happened.
Yeah, I think our head of department, Maya Burnett, might have reached out to you, and she reached out to the rest of the 2020 graduating class that this option was available to showcase our films, and I thought I might take that up. So yeah, I think that's how we first got connected.
It's a small world, you guys, because actually one of my former RISD students who transferred to CalArts contacted your professor who contacted you guys.
Right,
So
right. I
good
think I
for
heard
you
that
for
too.
listening to all that. Okay, well, Clarisse, can you talk to us a little bit about the process of creating your art school portfolio, which we're going to look at right now, and how you picked the schools? What was that whole experience like?
Right. So when I've known about CalArts for a little bit, but I definitely focused on trying to get into CalArts when I was living in Japan. I come from Singapore, and then I moved to Japan for a little bit. And yeah, at the time, I yeah, I wanted to get my animation education from an American school, and I was like researching online, and I came across CalArts. I looked at all their work, and yeah, that's how I started trying to get in there. And at first, being from overseas, it was tough. The only source of reference I had was all those YouTube sketchbook videos. And yeah, that was my first point of reference, kind of like, oh, what are people drawing? And my first thought was like, is this exactly what they want to see? Should I be copying like these kind of things? But as I went about it, maybe reaching out to some people who went to CalArts online, people were nice enough to talk to me. Yeah, and you kind of figure out you don't draw exactly what's in there, but the main bulk of it is focusing on observational drawing, really going out there, filling up a sketchbook, showing the school that you observe things and you're studying from them. Yeah, I think that was the first part of figuring out how to make this portfolio.
Now, you have a
Mhm.
lot of these life drawings of models. Did you go to a life drawing class in high school? Did you use photos? What did you do? Because I know for a lot of people, that's not easy to get access to nude models. I mean, now nobody's doing it because of the lockdown. But back then,
Yeah.
how did you do that?
Yeah, so when I was growing up in Singapore, I didn't even know this was something people did to get better at art. I didn't have access to a lot of art programs in Singapore. I tried to apply to many, but didn't get into any. Yeah, so I didn't even know life drawing was a thing. I think I found out more about it when I was at in Japan. I studied Japanese and art near a school, university called Kyoto University of Art and Design, I think. Yeah. And they had a club, a nude drawing, life drawing club. So I first started there and went like every 2 weeks or something. But they were definitely very expensive in Japan. It was like $20 for 1 to 2 hours. I'm not sure how much it is in America. But yeah, so other than that, I'd also supplement it with looking online and going to all those life drawing photo references to just make sure I'm doing as much as I can. Yeah.
Very cool. And by the way, some of you guys are saying in the chat, Neil is talking about the requirement that CalArts has to pass in a sketchbook. And lucky for us, we have Clarisse's sketchbook video for you guys to take a look at. And Clarisse, can you just tell us about the sketchbook? How did you go about making it, and what was the experience like?
Yeah, so I went out a lot. I sat in malls. Nowadays that's hard, but I sat in malls, sat in parks, and I just draw what I saw. Just kind of, it's hard. Some people ask me a lot, like, how do you draw people moving around? Because you're not going to see them in 2 seconds. You're going to be doing something different. How do you draw that? So yeah, just kind of take that mental picture and try to quickly sketch what you're doing in the moment. And I think as you do that, you get better at it. At first, you're going to fail constantly. But yeah, so that's what I did. And then I also took John Mahoney's portfolio preparation online course, which is offered on the CalArts website. So it's kind of a course that you pay for. And through that, since John Mahoney is one of our professors who's also part of the selection part of the core faculty that looks at portfolios, he was also able to give us some insight of what they're looking for. So a big bulk of it is observational drawing. And I guess they want to see that you love filmmaking, that you love animation. So in my sketchbook, I do have a few doodles of like character designs or some sketches that show that I'm thinking of a story, I'm thinking of composition kind of thing. So I think that helps. Yeah.
I mean, I think what strikes me about your sketchbook, Clarisse, is the fact that you tackled so many complicated spaces. Because what I oftentimes see is people will draw figures, but they draw figures really separately. They don't actually put the figures in a place. So do you have any advice for how to tackle that? Because I think a lot of people, if they went to, say, a mall and tried to draw a big group of people eating lunch, it's really intimidating. Like, do you have a suggestion for how to do that?
Uh, I don't know. Suggestion. I really enjoyed it. Something I miss a lot being cooped up is actually urban sketching, drawing outside. And I guess for me, I just try to get into the zone, just kind of sit down, get maybe a cup of something you like to sip on, and plug in some music and just have fun with it. Just take the time to do it. Have like an hour or two set for you to just be there and draw. Like, don't rush yourself. Don't think like I got to draw that next thing or like 500 drawings today. Just kind of be in that space. And yeah, like putting characters, people in that space always gives context to different things. So I think that's important too, to a certain degree. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds so, I think, obvious to a lot of people this, okay, have fun, but it's actually really hard for a lot of art school students to do that because the application process is so stressful and people really do feel that, wow, so much is on the line. I mean, is there a way for people to not stress so much and really focus on the work, because it can become a huge distraction?
Yeah, I was definitely stressed out during that whole process. I was living in Japan and I knew my parents would. I only had 1 year to try out for this. I know a few people who, you know, did a few tries and then got into CalArts, but I knew my parents were only going to give me one shot to try any of this. And yeah, I was very stressed out. And this sketchbook that I submitted was not the first one I did. I think I drew in about 5 sketchbooks, and the last one was the one I submitted in the end. How to not be stressed? I think at some point we just have to embrace that you will be stressed. You will be, because all this kind of thing, application, something, going for something you want, it's, if it's important to you, I think it's important that you're somewhat stressed. It just shows that you care. So I think it's important to embrace it, not let it stifle you, but let it be the motivator, for you to draw more. Yeah.
It's very tricky to balance, but I think, Clarisse, what you said about how you didn't make just one sketchbook, that you made several, that to me is very important, because I think sometimes when students apply for an art school portfolio, they say, oh, the art school wants 20 pieces. I guess I'm going to make 20 artworks. I'm like, no, you're going to probably
Mhm.
make 60, and you're going to pick the best 20 out of those 60,
Yeah,
because you can't be guaranteed that every time you sit down, you're going to push out an amazing portfolio piece. In fact, it's likely you will not. And so having
exactly.
that
Yeah.
time to weed out the less strong pieces is really good.
Hmm.
We have a question in the chat. Com Cuke is saying, what type of sketchbook is that? I'm always interested in what books people use.
Right. Honestly, I don't remember what sketchbook that is. Um, yeah, at the time, I was definitely very into sketchbooks as well. I remember going to the stationery shops around where I was living and just kind of feeling the paper, you know. So I cannot I cannot tell you what sketchbook that was. It's not as expensive as a moleskin, but the paper quality was very similar to a moleskin. Um, yeah, so I can't tell you what the sketchbook is, but I can say right now I don't care about my sketchbook uh, paper as much as I did before. Like nowadays I'm just kind of grabbing printer paper and drawing on it so that, it's not as much pressure. Back then, like, oh, it's a book, it's all binded together, but yeah, it might be different trying to apply to CalArts for sure because it's all in one. But yeah. Sorry, I can't really say.
Amaris Joseph is asking, what was the name of the CalArts portfolio program? What did you say? It was John Mahoney?
Yeah, John Mahoney is the person in charge of it. I'm not sure if his name is slapped on the title, but it's a kind of a CalArts animation portfolio preparation course. You should be able to find it on the website if you type all that stuff. Hmm.
Yeah.
But John Mahoney is the person in charge of that.
Okay, so Clarisse, let's
Mhm.
talk about the actual animation program at CalArts, because I obviously was at RISD for a very, very long time. And I think actually a lot of people probably don't know this, but my husband taught in the RISD animation program almost as long as I taught at RISD. And so I always had this peripheral view of the RISD animation program, but I know nothing about animation.
Yeah.
But I think what I've sort of heard from students and other faculty is that CalArts tends to be a more industry focused program, whereas a program like
Mm,
RISD is a little bit more experimental. It's more about making a more cohesive artist as far as having a vision, but maybe the hard skills are not pushed as much. So, how would you
right,
explain overall the CalArts animation program, the approach?
right. I would say its structure is mainly focused on pushing everyone's vision and voice as an artist, and to do that, the structure is mainly focused on every single student making a short film every year, from your first year to your fourth year. Every year, it's kind of part of your curriculum that you focus on making a short story. So, yeah, I'd say to sum up, that would be how the program is kind of based on. And based on that, you have classes to propel you towards that. You have character design to help you with your character design skills. You have story class to teach you the basics of story. And in a way, you dip your feet, is that the term? You dip your feet into all these classes to, at the end of the day, be a creator. I think that's what CalArts focuses on. And it's kind of up to you to choose if, at the end of the day, if your short film, if you want to be a creator, your short film might have all the aspects kind of tied down, but maybe you want to show off at the end of the day that you're a character designer, that you're a background artist, then your end of the year film, less so on story, would focus on um, the backgrounds, maybe it's a more atmospheric piece. So that's all up to us to figure out as we make our journey through CalArts. Yeah.
Caroline is asking in the chat, to what degree are photo references helpful? I know drawing from observation is the best, but my program wants figures, which I don't know what to do about. What do you think, Clarisse?
So the question is how much are photo references helpful? Is that
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh, I think they're a good supplement. They shouldn't be all you're using, but they're a good supplement. When things are moving, it's really difficult to figure out like what is a human being made out of when they're constantly moving in front of you. So I think photo references are great to kind of figure out like, okay, yeah, now I can really zoom in and see that the torso starts here, it ends here, and having that at the back of your mind, then you go out and tackle the real human beings and then you add character into it. Yeah, so I think photo references definitely help. I wouldn't say toss them away completely, but I also wouldn't say that's your only to use that as your only resource.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Caroline, I would back that up and say that you should know how to do all of it. And I think the mistake is when people say, you can only draw from life, because that's such a
Mm-hmm.
big limitation. Why would you want to do that? On the other hand, I also think it's a bad idea to only draw from photos. I think you got to train yourself to do both and then start to realize, oh, well, here are some of the advantages, here are some of the disadvantages, and to look at it like
Mm-hmm.
that. Tammy is asking, where do you get inspiration other than drawing in public?
Yeah, I get inspiration from movies. I love films ever since I was a kid, and yeah, I my goal is to make films, direct films, and yeah, just watching a film reminds me why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I want to get better. So I'd say films, stories that I like, those inspire me a lot. Hmm.
And Clarisse, what are some of your favorite films?
My favorite films. The Lord of the Rings trilogy, some of my as one of my favorite series. I love the Darjeeling Limited. It's a Wes Anderson film. What else? I love too many movies. I don't know. So those come off the back of my head. I love Wall-E. It's one of my favorite animated films. The Prince of Egypt as well. Uh, I love. Oh yeah, I grew up on Ghibli films. Those were the films that inspired me to go into animation. Yeah, those made me want to make feature animation films like Howl's Moving Castle. All of those. Hmm.
Very cool. So actually, we're going to show now Clarisse's first year film. Clarisse, can you just give us really quickly what that film was about?
Yeah, so that film is just kind of based off first coming into CalArts and feeling the way I feel of wanting to be better, looking at other people and wanting to be like them. Yeah, that's what it's based off on, I guess.
Okay, let's take a look.
Mm.
It's a pretty short film. It's about a minute and a half. And let's see what she did in her first year. We're back. Clarisse, can you tell us exactly what you used to make that film? Like, did you do it hand drawn or on the computer? How was that made? And you guys who just watched the film, tell us what you thought. That was her first year film, you guys. Just think about that, okay? So, yes, how did you
Oh
make My
gosh.
Ways?
Yeah, how did I make it? So it's all mainly animated on TV Paint. So it's digital 2D digital hand-drawn animation, you'd say. Yeah, so during our first year, there are some limitations that are put on us to kind of focus more on the story. So one of the things they recommend is that we go monochromatic. So it's a black and white film with some like you add some color maybe to focus the eye on the important things. Yeah, so I think first year was the simplest I've ever done anything. So it was all like the backgrounds were done on Photoshop and tried to mimic the style of the TV Paint pencil tool. And I think I put it all together in After Effects to get the clouds to shift back and forth. And then I put it all in Premiere Pro and added sound effects from our sound library. Yeah.
I mean, Clarisse, what strikes me about that film is that it does seem like you were working within your means, but also being ambitious. Because what happens a lot, actually, in animation programs, I don't know if this happens in CalArts very much, is people get so ambitious about, I'm going to do this big thing, and then they end up shooting themselves in the foot. And it seems to me
Mm.
like because you went, well, I know they asked you to do it monochromatically, but because you kept it fairly simple, it seems to me like you really were able to push the animation. Where some people, it's like they spend
Mm.
forever painting the backgrounds and then the animation isn't very good. And so, what's your advice to keep that cohesion and consistency?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess when I came into CalArts for during my first year, I was nervous. I was excited but nervous, and something that they do talk about with the limitations, they tell you that it's going to help you. It's going to help you focus more on story. And I came in with no knowledge on storyboarding or any of that stuff. So I just kind of was there to learn. And if you tell me something, I'm going to try it. So that's what I did. And yeah, to kind of focus on the story, I tried to make the character design simple, something I could draw at the time. Um, yeah, just kind of making choices so that I can focus more on what is important, which is like getting it done for one thing, making it consistent, you know. But some people are very, yeah, like you said, very ambitious, and some people pull it off. In the recent years, the new freshmen coming in, they're crazy. They are so ambitious. They get it done, and it's beautiful. It's all colored, and yeah, times are changing. But yeah,
Well, I
at the
remember
time, yeah.
when I used to teach freshman drawing, oftentimes the final
Mhm.
project, I would say, do whatever media you want. And so inevitably, I would have a couple kids who would say, oh, I want to do an animation. And I'd always look at them with this really skeptical face. I'd say, you know, you only have 2 weeks to do this
Mm.
project. Oh, no, 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 I can do it. I'm not joking. I had a student come in literally with nothing. And I said, how can you? It's the film is black. I processed it wrong. I was like, oh my god! Like
Mm.
people do not realize all the stages that are necessary to put out something
Yeah.
like animation. It is not a simple thing, and 1,000 things can go wrong from beginning to end. And so, really being able to do something like that early on, I imagine, was a really good lesson and maybe felt empowering after your first year.
I was glad I finished the film for sure. And yeah, I have seen cases where that's the case where you can't, especially it's, being your first year, especially as someone who hasn't made a film before, hasn't done animation before, you don't know where you stand. You don't know how good you are at animating. You don't know how quickly you can pick it up. And I think one thing I like about making a film each year at CalArts is you have the years to make mistakes and learn like, okay, I animate this quickly, or oh, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. Very slow. I'm a little slower. And I think that's very important to figure out like your work, the way you work, the way you draw, what's important to you. I think yeah, that's something that's great with the program. You get the time to learn all that about yourself.
Thank you so much for the super chat, 10,000 crows. We really appreciate your support. Super chats are always welcome. As you guys know, we do not charge any fee or paywall for our content, 100% free, so we rely entirely on donations. Okay, so Clarisse, let's take a look at your second year film. Can you tell us what the overview is for that before we take a look?
Yeah, so I came up with this film over the summer, kind of looking at my mom who works a lot, and she works very hard and she's stressed out a lot. And yeah, this film is based off that.
Okay, let's take
Mhm.
a look. Okay, we are back. So, Clarisse, I'm wondering, what did you take from the experience of making your first year film that you then
Mhm.
applied into the big man film?
Right. I think one thing I wanted to make sure that I did was have enough time to animate the whole thing and make sure I knew what my capabilities were when it came to animating. So something I wanted to bring forward was a character design that was not only representative of the character, but also something that was easy to animate. I didn't want to over design in that sense. So that's something I took. Something that I pushed a little more with my second year film was After Effects. That's something I always tried to push each year, my knowledge of After Effects and trying to add a little bit more and use it to my advantage. So definitely more so than my first year film. Big Man Businessman has a little bit more After Effects animation in there as well. Yeah.
Celestrio is saying, I'm currently an animation student at a different school. Definitely feeling like my ambition can't meet my slow perfectionist pace. Wish I knew a
Mm.
way to get looser and quicker. Any advice for that?
Yeah, I have a few friends who tell me about that kind of like they're very being a perfectionist kind of stifles their progression because they can't draw because they want it to be perfect. And I don't know, sometimes they realize that when it comes to their own work, they're the most they're a real perfectionist. But when they try working in a team for someone else, or maybe it's someone else's project, they find that they loosen up a little bit with the pressure of someone working for someone, knowing that this is not your baby but someone else's baby kind of deal. I know other people, I don't know, maybe some exercises of playing charades and thinking on your toes, and you can't, take all the time in the world to explain it because the clock is ticking. Maybe those are some practices that you could do. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Alyssa is saying, I know CalArts is one of the biggest animation schools, but I can only afford to apply to my state school's animation program. I'm worried that the
Hmm.
school won't take me as far in the animation industry. Well, what do you say about that, Clarisse? Because obviously everybody has a totally different experience, and yet you're all going into
Yeah.
the same industry. And certain schools have different programs and advantages and disadvantages. What would you say to
Hmm.
somebody like that? Is there a way for them to practice more, or what would you say?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to have like relatives supporting me as well as some scholarships to help back up CalArts, but I understand it's ridiculously expensive. But I'd say the school at the end of the day with your art progression, with your art education, the school, it's not really about the school. I think something great about CalArts is the community. Everyone that goes there knows that they love animation, so and are very passionate for it, and kind of you get the same, pretty much the same degree of motivation in a place like CalArts, where I hear in other schools, maybe, you have kind of a spectrum of people who are trying it out to people who are really hardcore trying to do it. But in my years of doing internships and some industry jobs, I've seen people from everywhere in the industry. They're not all from CalArts. If more often than not, I see so many students or interns who are from other art schools. So CalArts isn't the end all. I think what's most important is your motivation, knowing your goals, and whichever art program you're in, making sure that you work towards those goals and research appropriately to get to those goals, more so than the school itself.
Alyssa, what I would
Hmm.
tell you, don't let the school define who you are, because it does not,
Hmm.
okay? And you can go to a top school and be a total slacker and not do
Hmm.
well. I mean, I know people who went to Harvard who honestly were total basket cases. And I've also met people who went to lesser known schools who are extremely successful today. And the other thing I would say
Hmm.
as well, and Clarice, I'm sure you're already realizing this, is no matter where you go to school, wherever you get a job in the industry, you're going to be learning on
Hmm.
the job. I mean, Clarice, do you think you've learned everything there is to learn about animation at this point?
I don't know. I have so much more to learn, and yeah, definitely. I always hear that as well. You're gonna learn the most on the job. So yeah,
Yeah, so don't worry
sure.
about that. I understand that a lot of people really do feel that where they get accepted does determine their self worth, but don't let it do that to you, because you're the one
Mm-hmm.
who determines what your own self worth is. Okay, let's take a look at Clarisse's third year film. So, Clarisse, can you tell us the name of your film and just a quick overview before we watch it?
Yeah. So my third year film's called Taku and Mama, and it's kind of I wanted to tell a story about the specific relationship between a mother and son, and maybe a more Asian inspired relationship that you don't really see too often. So yeah, that's this film.
Cool. All right, let's take a look.
Mhm.
Two, three, four.
いらっしゃいませ。
Taku, come down.
1 bundle of firewood.
Mama, where's this tray?
It's right there.
Ugh,
Did you use hinoki wood for this?
stop it.
That's 2 keaki and 1 bundle of firewood. That'll be... Go behind.
I was just adjusting my mask.
Sorry about that. Itadakimasu. Taku.
I was gonna pick it up later.
Festival season is next month. I need you to be in the shop more.
But I already help every day.
Also, you gotta stop using so much hinoki wood. I counted only 2 planks this morning.
I use the blocks, not the...
You use enough.
But I need them.
Taku! Taku. I,
Okay, we are back. Tell us in the chat what you guys see that was different between Clarisse's films, because now we've seen your first year film, we've seen your second year film, and now we've seen your third year film, and I think we can all agree there's some big differences. I'm curious to see what you guys really notice as people who are watching 3 years of work within just a few minutes. And Clarisse, let's hear from you. What did this film mean for you? Because your third time around, it's quite different.
Yeah, so third time round, it was, I don't know, I was really passionate about this story, these characters that I wanted to present, and something I wanted to push more this during my third year was cinematography. One of the reasons I chose widescreen was I wanted to push the kinds of compositions you could tell. And yeah, so those are some of the things I focused on this year round. Again, with the character design, same thing, something I wanted to draw, but I was able to animate easily. But I also, I don't know, definitely still talking to character design teachers and making sure each part of the design had meaning to it. Yeah, still pushing forward. And this year I was inspired by Ozu, the director. Almost every year except my first year I was inspired by a director. Like my second year film was inspired by Jacques Tati, the French director, and during my third year it was Ozu. Yeah.
Well, it looks, Clarisse, from in the chat, we're getting a really emotional response. 10,000 Crows is saying, okay, now I'm going to cry for real. Neil is saying, ugh, why is this so relatable? Is this just an Asian thing? Blue Will Spirit is saying the story's more intense. Celestrio says, better uses of imagery and cinematography. Sista Bear says, more color, more story development. And Caroline says, increased styles and having more of a personal voice. Terrence says, I love how it was so specific, yet still had a universal message. And Tammy noticed some awesome details, such as the reflection in the tea kettle. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to see that arc of improvement, Clarisse, because really, that's what I think art school should be about. I don't think art school should be about who makes the best, most polished, complete film. I think what we should be looking for is the improvement. How far did you get from the last film, and do we see you really pushing those skills that you've acquired? Really, really exciting. Okay, now your final film, we are not going to be screening because it's actually on Clarisse's Vimeo. And if you guys go down to the video description below, we do have that link. And Clarisse, I believe you said it's only going to be available for 2 weeks?
Yeah, about 2 weeks, maybe one more week since I started it last week. Yeah.
And can you explain to people why it has this limited run on Vimeo?
Yeah, so something we're told or suggested to do about with our short films is submit them into festivals. So at the moment, the Kitchlets, my fourth year film, is doing the festival circuit, and I do want to share it with everybody. But after about 2 weeks, I do have to put it back, especially this year, since due to the COVID virus, a lot of festivals are doing things online this year. So yeah, due to that, I might need to not share too much of the film for too long.
We actually do have it in the Art Prof graduation video. It's just I made an idiotic mistake, and so the audio got all garbled in the graduation stream. So unfortunately that is the case. But if you want to watch a good, clean version of Clarisse's, it is in the Vimeo. So you guys should take a look at a good, clean version of it, because the graduation stream, we had some audio problems, and so it didn't come out exactly perfectly. But tell us about what this felt like, Clarisse, because this is a long film compared to the other ones. This one's what, like 7 minutes? Yeah. And it's also your senior film. And for that reason, I know a lot of students put a lot of pressure on themselves because it's their final film in art school. So what was that experience like?
Yeah, it was definitely exciting. It was definitely the most ambitious film in terms of length, because every year we at Calarts, we do the time limit, quote unquote time limit for our film does get a little longer. So all the way through, I've kept to the time limit, and this year was 7 minutes. I've added a 30-second credit for the online version. But yeah, it was, I don't know, I was just continuing the same thought process of wanting to tell a story that was inside me, and in this case, a feeling. Kind of the main character of the Kitchlets comes from kind of a place of insecurity, a place of like feeling alone, but the film is also inspired kind of by mythology. I was very into the idea of house deities for a little bit, house spirits, and I kind of figured out that almost every single culture has a form of house spirits, from like the Chinese kitchen gods to like Scottish brownies and Greek hearth goddesses. So yeah, that was interesting to me, and I wanted to recreate my own house spirit and see how that plays out in this film.
Well, I think, Clarisse, one thing that I noticed about all your pieces is that despite the fact that with every year you're obviously gaining more skills in terms of storyboarding and rhythm and stuff like that and pacing, I think what I see in your work, what actually I don't see all the time, is that you seem to put a really big priority on story. And I think that's a huge difference, because I've also seen a lot of animation students who, yes, they go to a top program, but in the end, the work doesn't have a lot of spirit to it. And so I think that's really important, that you've got your mind in the right place. Because at the end of the day, nobody cares how technically adept you are if you've got no story to tell. And I think that's what I see visibly in all of these pieces, is that no matter what you did, visually or technically, they all have a story to tell. And I love that so much. And Terrence Jackson is saying in the chat, the best part of your work is that there's an obvious love for the craft that seeps through in each work. Yeah, it's like you can't fake that enthusiasm. And that's really, really exciting. Now, Clarisse.
Yeah, thank you.
What would you say to somebody who wants to go to an animation program but is in high school right now and maybe doesn't have resources to attend a summer program and they really are teaching themselves? What advice would you give to them to practice?
Yeah, other than the online course that I did, I was never able to do a summer program either. I'd say continue to be inspired by the animation work that you like. Keep on watching stuff you like. Discover new animation and films that you like. Get all that into your brain, kind of widen your visual vocabulary in terms of films. Discover new things that you think you might not like. And also, go out, draw your family, draw your friends, draw things in spaces. Just keep practicing. I feel like it's great to have instruction for sure, but the first step is always on your own. And these days with the internet, there's so many tutorials people are doing online. So yeah, I'd recommend that self-study and widening your visual vocabulary. What do you know how to draw, and what do you not know how to draw? Do I know how to draw a giraffe? Go look up a giraffe and draw it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely taking a long look and saying, okay, where are my weaknesses? Which is not fun for anybody. I mean, we'd all rather do what we're already good at. But I think what you're talking about, Clarisse, which is being a really well-rounded artist, is very important. Because I know a lot of people who want to go into animation and they say, oh, I don't need to do life drawing. I just want to draw characters. And I'm like, yeah, but character design is rooted in life drawing. And if you can't draw a figure from life, you're going to have a lot of trouble designing a character. So I think that's pretty important to stress. Neil is saying, would you do more streams like this, but with artists on other fields? This is really helpful for us high school students. I think we will, because you guys are asking for it. And you know that I love to make all of you guys so happy. So yes, if you guys ever have suggestions for video streams, topics you'd like to see, just let us know in the chat. You guys can follow Clarisse on Instagram. It's in the slide here, but all of her information, her Vimeo, which links to her 4th year film, is in the video description, and also her Instagram. See what she's up to, because I think we're going to see some pretty cool things from you in the future. I will be in the Discord server in a few minutes, and I will be in the post live streams channel if you guys would like to chat with me a little bit. And subscribe to our channel and join the Art Prof family. And thank you so much to our top Patreon supporters who make all of this possible. Thank you to everybody here for participating in the chat, giving us all of your thoughtful commentary. And thank you, Clarisse, for joining us and showing us your work and talking about your experience at Calarts. I think it was really great to hear about your experience there. Everybody, please stay safe. I'll see you next time.